everybody up on speed. I know everyone is anxious to see what the track plan is going to look like. But here's where we are on the layout committee. We got a narrow group, and then I'm going to talk to you in a moment about another group that needs to form for the next plan. So where we are right now in the layout committee is we're totally focused on standards. We have a lot of these standards listed, which a lot of you, we had discussions with you when we first started to hear from you. What's our minimum radius? What track we're going to use? So we're breaking it down now into what these standards are. We're going to just standards, and then we're ready to put down what we want to look at options on layouts. There is a lot of ideas that we have discussed. However, we don't want to put anything down on paper that's going to change just because there's one standard there that could change it. Also, what we've been hearing too, there's some things coming into the club that recently became assets that we need to know what that is. So some of these standards here we may throw out to you and say, hey guys, we're at this point here. It might be like electronic component. What is your feedback on this? Here's the options here. Here's the whys. We have had several meetings in our group. The first group is Morris, Steve Kerr, Bruce, and myself. And the reason we're keeping that in just a narrow group right there is this is actual pre-planning stages of the layout in the group. That being said, we had a meeting at Morris's house recently. To give you an idea of a few of the components on there, is we all agreed and we did a presentation on LCC operations, layout,
Amen.
Command control. We will go to that
Amen.
For controlling the switches, lighting, and everything
Signaling.
except the locomotives.
Right.
Those are obviously DCC.
Right.
We are DCC. We've heard the request of having DC operations here. Bruce can speak on that. That's still on the table, so there's some ideas there. One of the things that also we've been discussing is, and then that's going to move forward in discussion, is what do we have to build it in? Because we start with 5,000 feet that goes down to this footage. Then you have to be concerned about fire excess and rules and all. So then we have an inside set. We initially were going to have an area that we were going to cordon off for meeting room and also for shop and staging. However, we've had some good discussion that you don't need to take
Right.
500 square feet and 500 square feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the goal is how much square footage can we give to the layout itself, because
Amen.
that should have priority. That being said, we can still have the meeting area that's kind of a quasi meeting area there with removable AV equipment. I have that over in our warehouse. We have one of those. You roll in, roll out. There's your big media. You can put it away.
Yeah.
And Bruce can elaborate more. It's ideas what they're looking at. It's not finished on staging, combining with workshop areas. As far as tools and equipment to do these, with whatever plan we decide to go with on track plans, we can put that stuff away underneath. It's going to be put away. Take out, work, put it back away. So the goal is to maximize the track areas and with the design that we're looking for. So we've got a few more meetings to go on that. So that's where we are. Is standards has to be done first.
Got it.
And then second, there's another category that we would like to introduce to you, for y'all to discuss how you want to go about it. But where we have a layout committee, there needs to be a building committee, because some of the questions we have too is who's going to build it.
Yeah.
The options are club builds it, all the woodwork, saws, materials, everything. A pro comes in, or a hybrid of the two. A pro builds a certain section of it. So that's something that a building committee needs to focus on that probably would take away from us. But the building committee, they do all their prep work now as to answering all those questions and having y'all's discussion. And then when it comes into us having a track plan we hand you on paper, then the building committee says, this is the material, how much material, where we're going to buy the material, where we're going to get everything to go in and be able to build it to put that track plan on the layout. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
of course.
So that's a discussion for y'all to have, is who you all want to have on the actual building committee, but that needs to be worked through on who, what, where, how, and why of the building part itself. And perhaps that can be expanded into other things about the building that y'all want to talk about. But that's a building committee separate from the layout.
Got it.
Bruce, you want to add something to that?
Well, some of those people can overlap in between those two committees, number one. And, but the big issue is who is going to build the layout.
Mm-hmm.
Is it definitive that club members are going to meet once a week, twice a week,
Yeah.
6 times a week?
What's the tempo?
Or
Yeah.
you know, how does that schedule work? What kind of materials are going to be available? When are they going to be available? All of those sorts of things. So personally, on the design committee, I would like to get a good feel about how this layout's going to be built before doing the design, so that we can design around those parameters that is capable for the club members if they're going to build, or if it's a pro that's going to build. So that's the main point that I wanted to kind of make today.
Give y'all a kind of an idea. We had anticipated and put in our budget adequate funds, as we understand it, to have the rough end done by a professional in order to get it done up and running. So that they're going to have a good enough drawing, CAD drawing, that is going to be capable for a good cabinet type of builder that can come in. I've used one before, on one that I had that can do it, but if we have the money, it's going to be the key there to have that part of it done. Not the landscaping from the track up, that's a different story, but at least have that thing cut, curves, everything done and laid out there would be our idea at this point in time. With me saying that, is there any question? I don't guess Joe's gone upstairs, but anyways, we're going to attempt to do it that way. Okay, why? Because you get a bunch of guys in there and everybody's got a different half-inch,
Yeah.
quarter-inch dimension, and you get into it, and then we don't get it done fast enough anyways, where we have a crew that comes in there and tries
Got
to
it.
do it.
Yeah.
So that's something that we hope that we've got the money to do. In the budget, it is there now. And that's what we're anticipating, using that money to do that. Pete,
Okay.
answer that. Anything about that? Is that any question? Anything you want to add to it?
The only thing I remember out of the club downtown was it was such a big layout, we had it temporary turnaround so you could have a small section of the layout working while you're building the rest of it. So you could
Yeah.
have some operation before the whole thing was finished.
Yeah.
So you have some temporary connections to make it, that would be nice.
Yeah.
That keeps the interest up.
What's the
Well,
timeline
honestly, this.
after Easter before he's even got it put up?
I think by the summer, the layout itself should be in progress. I'd say by the summer, this coming summer, that we should have a pretty good idea of where we're going to do, what kind of layout's going to be, a diagram of the layout, if possible, by that time, and then the implementation of hiring, if we've got money by that time, which again we should, is to become the contractor to come in and start the rough end. Now remember, we're going to have the large module, which is about 2 or 3 times the size of this, up until we get this layout ready to be installed, and they need the room, because we're going to wait and tear down the large module at the last minute if we have to, in order to run trains on it. So we intend to have trains running up until the point we have to have the space. It's time to take it out, and then we may stick this small module up if we have to in order to do that. So these are all considerations.
One of the big issues with the design itself is we have 3 different options. We either have a single height layout that goes all the way around, or we have a shelf layout and a standard, so that you have an upper and lower that's run by the same aisle space. Or you have what's called a mushroom design, where you're actually doing a double shelf layout, but only this lower section is visible from one aisleway, and then if you're on the inside aisle, then you're up at a high enough level so that whatever your benchwork level is here on the lower part, your benchwork level is the same up there.
Yeah.
So you get a really nice on the ground look at both levels, rather than looking up here, looking down
Got it,
here.
got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the mushroom is nice and could potentially fit the space, but it's also like at least twice, if not three times, the wood and
Yeah,
construction
sure.
that's involved with it. So we need to make that decision before we even consider any track plan whatsoever.
And I would suggest that maybe the building committees you're gonna form, y'all have that discussion, and we need to decide.
Well, that needs to be a discussion between all the
Everybody.
members.
Okay.
I mean, that's not an exclusive.
That's what we
kind
gotta
of
do. We
decision.
gotta go with the members. Y'all's recommendation comes in, we take that, talk to the members, see if everybody, are we good enough to have an agreement? Have a preferably, I believe a meeting like this, where we're looking at each other, where y'all got your diagram and everything, and we can see it without having to do it on Zoom.
But there's not going to be any diagram whatsoever until we get some of these standards put down.
Okay, I agree. No, the standard, I
Because
fully
all you're doing is
understand.
wasting time if you're
Okay.
doing that. So the formation of the different shelf issues of the layout, single, multiple, that's going to be number one. We've got most of the standards available now except for that one. So-
Bruce, what do you think about, is that something that we can put in email questions to put out to the group, that maybe by next meeting in January?
Well,
we can
what I
answer?
would recommend is
We can poll it.
we can find some articles
I was gonna say,
that
have you seen examples?
that describe
Things that
what
you
a
can share?
mushroom is, what a shelf layout is, what this and that, and the different ways to access between those levels. We're probably going to have a helix someplace,
Oh, good.
and compared to
I love
a
helix.
general climb,
Yeah.
because if you do a climb, then you have an issue that your heights are going to vary all up and down the whole layout.
Mm-hmm.
So so putting a helix in makes sense. Now, and also we want to hide the helix, or we want
Yeah.
that to be part or related to the staging area, so that that's a hidden portion of the layout that's feeding
Yeah.
everything else,
Yeah.
so that you're not looking at trains running around
In circles.
vertical helixes. So those are some of the considerations.
Did y'all happen to, now the layout, I've got some in the back of my car where we actually drew the general area for the city.
Right.
Did y'all calculate the square footage of it? Because it's drawn to scale, that layout, or the area for the layout. Did y'all calculate the square footage area in there? Have you done that?
Yes.
Okay.
It was like 3,100, 3,100 square feet or something like that, out of
That's
a
generally
10,000 square foot building.
7,500.
Oh, 75.
7,200.
The one side will be a rental.
It's 72 or
7,200.
So minus the rental part, it's 5,000 square feet, and from there, then we started working down, and,
Yeah.
which we didn't have to, but like Bruce said, it's just over 3,000 square feet of space.
Yeah, that's not what we wanted, but we're having to do that because we've got to pay for this thing with that rental, and unfortunately.
No, rentals make sense. I mean, that's a key part of the.
I think the
whole
ramrod
organization.
is.
But
Already.
We gotta go. It's 10.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Can y'all, if you're going to
Yeah.
lunch too, you
we
guys,
are.